Man, listen. You ever have one of those conversations where you think you know where it's going, and then somebody just casually drops a nuclear bomb of information on you? That's exactly what happened when I was talking to David Kipping. We're sitting there chatting about space. You know, the usual James Webb is insane type stuff. And then, in the middle of all this, he just says, "Oh yeah, James Webb might have just spotted a planet in Alpha Centauri's habitable zone." And my brain just stops. Like, wait, hold on. Rewind. Alpha Centauri? The nearest star system to Earth? The one that's been in every sci-fi book and video game since forever? And it's in the habitable zone? For people who don't nerd out on this, the habitable zone is like the Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cold, just right for liquid water. And liquid water, as far as we know, is one of the big prerequisites for life. So when you hear that, it's not just, oh, neat, another planet. No, man, that's like your neighbor just bought a pet tiger. You're going, okay, this could be fine, or it could change everything. Here's where it gets wild. They're calling it a candidate planet because it's still early data, but the images? Dude, you can see this thing. James Webb has this insane coronagraph technology. It literally blocks out the blinding light of the star so you can see what's orbiting around it. Imagine you're standing on a beach trying to spot a firefly flying near the sun. That's the kind of challenge we're talking about here. And Webb just pulls it off like, yeah, here it is. Big ol' Saturn-sized world just chilling in your cosmic backyard. And of course, the internet being the internet, some headline instantly goes, NASA finds Avatar planet. Like, of course, right? Forget the science. Let's slap a James Cameron reference on it so people who didn't care yesterday suddenly think there's blue aliens doing tree yoga over there. And honestly, I'm not even mad about it. Because, man, if there was ever a time to make people pay attention to space, it's when you can say, that planet might actually have a Navi dude sipping alien coffee right now. Here's the thing that blows my mind. Alpha Centauri isn't just one star. It's a triple star system. You've got Alpha Centauri A and B, which orbit each other, and then way out there you've got Proxima Centauri, which is the closest of the three to us. And Proxima already has a planet in its habitable zone. We've known that for years. So now you're telling me one of the other stars might also have a potentially habitable planet. That's like moving into a neighborhood and realizing not only does the guy next door own a tiger, but his cousin 2 doors down has a freaking lion. It's like, what is going on in this part of the galaxy? Now, when Kipping's talking about it, he's all measured and scientific. We need more data. It's a candidate. We have to confirm. But in my head, I'm already picturing this as the beginning of every single alien contact movie ever made. Like this is how it starts, right? We spot the planet, we get better pictures, maybe we detect an atmosphere that has oxygen and methane, gases that, as far as we know, only life produces in those quantities. And then, boom, headlines. Politicians arguing on TV, billionaires racing to be the first to send a probe, somebody greenlights a Netflix series called Alpha Centauri starring Pedro Pascal. You can feel it. And the distances, man, that's the other thing. Alpha Centauri is only about 4.37 light-years away, which sounds huge because a light-year is what? Almost 6 trillion miles? But in cosmic terms, that's right there. That's the next town over. If our galaxy was the United States, Alpha Centauri is like Vegas from LA, and we've already got people working on ways to get there faster than just sending Voyager 3 and waiting 80,000 years. There's this thing called Project Starshot. You basically take these little tiny probes, put a giant reflective sail on them, and blast them with a freaking laser from Earth so they accelerate to like 20% the speed of light. And at that speed, you're talking about making the trip in just over 20 years. 20 years. That's a road trip. That's less time than it took for the Fast and Furious franchise to go from stealing DVD players to launching a car into space. And imagine this. You send those probes now, and in our lifetime, not our grandkids, not the year 3000, us, you could get actual close-up pictures of another planet in Alpha Centauri. Like, Here's a shot of an alien tree. Here's an alien ocean. Here's an alien raccoon-looking thing giving the camera the finger. That's how fast the tech is moving. Now, here's where I go full conspiracy brain. If we can already image this thing with Webb, and if we're already thinking about how to go there, what's to say somebody else isn't already here? And I'm not talking little green men running around in Vegas dressed as Elvis, although honestly, Vegas would be the perfect place for aliens to hide. I'm talking more like they're already doing to us what we're about to do to Alpha Centauri, watching from a distance. Just observing. Maybe they've got their own version of Webb set up a few light years away, pointed at Earth, and they're going, look at these little apes. They just discovered nuclear weapons. They've got billionaires building penis-shaped rockets. They're filming everything they eat. This is gonna be good. And that's the thing. If there's life over there, and it's even a little bit ahead of us, they already know about us. Our radio waves have been leaking out into space for over 100 years. That means, in theory, Alpha Centauri has had a front-row seat to every episode of I Love Lucy, the moon landing, and the first season of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Which, if that's the case, no wonder they haven't said, hi. They're like, these people aren't ready. They just elected a reality TV star as president. Pass. But seriously, man, it's moments like this that make me both insanely excited and kind of, I don't know, humbled? Because we get so caught up in our little daily nonsense, traffic, bills, who said what on Twitter, and then you remember, oh yeah, there's literally another world, possibly like ours, just floating around a star right next door. And we just saw it for the first time. It's like living your whole life thinking you're in some tiny little cul-de-sac. And then one day somebody says, hey, did you know there's a whole other neighborhood just over that hill? And you climb up and there it is. And the people over there might be looking back going, oh, they finally noticed us. So here's the thing, man. Once you start thinking about this Alpha Centauri planet, you can't stop. You're lying in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, going, okay, what if there's life there right now? And then your brain starts building these scenarios like it's making a movie. You picture this lush alien jungle, rivers winding. Through it, maybe some mountain ranges that make the Rockies look like speed bumps. And then you wonder, is it teeming with life? Or is it barren except for, I don't know, one weird crab thing with laser eyes? Could be anything. But the idea of intelligent life? That's the one that fries my brain. Because if there is intelligent life, it's not like meeting a new neighbor who happens to like barbecue, too. It's meeting a species that might be 1,000,000 years ahead of us. 1,000,000 years, dude. Think about the difference between us now and a bunch of cavemen with sticks. That's maybe a couple 100,000 years of development. Now multiply that by 5. Their tech would be so far ahead that we wouldn't even understand it. It'd be like giving a smartphone to a goldfish. The goldfish isn't going to start scrolling Instagram. It's just confused and wondering why its bowl is glowing, and if they're ahead of us, that means they've had forever to do stuff like, I don't know, map the whole galaxy, harness their star's energy, build Dyson spheres. If they wanted to come here, it wouldn't be a matter of can we? It'd be, do we feel like it? And here's the trippy part. Maybe they've already decided they don't want to. Maybe they're like, nah, we've seen this before. Young species, aggressive, still fights over land and imaginary borders. Give it a few thousand years and maybe they'll chill. But what if they do decide to visit? That's where it gets scary. Not in the Independence Day blow up the White House kind of way. I'm talking about the unsettling idea that if they're 1,000,000 years ahead, we're not going to have a choice in how that meeting goes. We'll just wake up one day and there's a ship in the sky. Or maybe we won't even see a ship. Maybe we just start noticing things, like the weather acting weird, satellites glitching, weird little blips in our DNA. And then we realize, oh, they're already here, and they've been here for a while. Now, getting there ourselves, that's a whole other rabbit hole. The tech we have right now, forget it. We could send a regular spacecraft, sure, but we'd all be dead before it got there. That's why people are talking about stuff like that breakthrough Starshot project. The idea is so wild, you build these tiny probes, like grams in weight, stick a reflective sail on them, and then blast them with lasers from Earth so they accelerate to a significant fraction of the speed of light. 20% of light. Speed. That's not Star Trek warp drive fast, but it's stupid fast compared to anything we've ever done. At that speed, Alpha Centauri is a 20-year trip. Think about that. If we started right now, we could have images back in about 24 years. And I'm not talking fuzzy little blobs. I'm talking detailed pictures, continents, oceans, maybe even structures if there are any. And that's what gets me, man. We could live to see it. We could literally be the generation that goes from, hey, we think there's a planet over there, to, here's a high-res selfie of it. And you know the moment that data hits, the world changes, like instantly. Stock markets would freak out, religious leaders would have press conferences, politicians would suddenly become space experts overnight, and half the internet would be screaming, fake, NASA's lying. Because of course that's what happens with everything. But underneath all that noise, there'd be this shift in perspective. You wouldn't be able to go back to thinking the universe is just us. That whole "are we alone?" question would finally get an answer. Even if the answer is just, no, there's life over there, but it's crabs with laser eyes. It still changes how we see ourselves. The other thing nobody talks about, if we can see them, they can see us. And we've been broadcasting our existence for over a century now. Radio, TV, all of it leaking into space like a giant, "we're here" signal. Alpha Centauri is close enough that they could have been picking up our earliest broadcasts decades ago, which means they might already know what we look like, what we sound like. And unfortunately, they also know about reality TV and Twitter fights, which, not the best first impression, and maybe that's why they're quiet. There's this thing called the zoo hypothesis, the idea that advanced civilizations purposely avoid contact with us because we're not ready. Like zookeepers observing animals without interfering. They're just watching, maybe studying how we develop. And that makes sense, right? If you showed up to a planet and saw the locals still killing each other over imaginary lines on a map, would you go down and say, "Hi"? Or would you hang back, see if they figure it out? Here's the kicker. If they are watching, they might also be subtly nudging us. Maybe some of the leaps in tech we've made in the last century weren't entirely our idea. Maybe somebody planted those seeds just to see what we'd do. And maybe, just maybe, they're waiting for a specific milestone. Something like us becoming a multi-planet species before they decide we're worth talking to. But that's the optimistic take. The dark side of it is the great filter theory. The idea that most civilizations never make it past a certain point, usually right around when they develop the tech to destroy themselves. Which, look around. We're right there. Nuclear weapons, climate change, AI, we're playing with matches in a fireworks factory. And maybe Alpha Centauri had its own civilizations that didn't make it. Maybe that planet we're so excited about is a graveyard, and that's why I think this discovery is such a big deal, because it's not just, hey, new planet, it's a mirror. It forces us to think about where we are, where we're going, and whether we're going to be here long enough to actually visit it. It's exciting, but it's also a little terrifying. And I'll be honest, part of me hopes we do find life there, because that would be the ultimate perspective shift for humanity. But another part of me wonders if we're ready, because once that genie's out of the bottle, you can't put it back. And if they're a million years, so let's play this out, man. Because I love doing this thought experiment. Imagine tomorrow. Morning you wake up, you grab your coffee, and before you even take a sip, your phone's blowing up. Every news app has the same headline. NASA confirms life on Alpha Centauri planet. And it's not just speculation, it's confirmed. Atmosphere readings, chemical signatures, maybe even actual images. Like, boom. It's official. Now, what happens next? I think most people imagine some Independence Day style unifying moment where the whole planet holds hands and says, we're all humans together. But come on, You know that's not how it goes. Half the world would be in full panic mode. The other half would be ordering Alpha Centauri shirts on Etsy. Politicians would instantly turn it into a campaign issue. My opponent wants to send taxpayer dollars to aliens. I say, America first. Meanwhile, Elon Musk would be tweeting, just bought a controlling stake in Alpha Centauri, making it Mars 2.0, and you know there'd be a weird cultural divide too. Some people would be thrilled, like, finally, we're not alone. Others would think it's the end of the world. Preachers on TV saying, the Bible never mentioned Alpha Centauri shrimp people. This is the devil's work. And late night, hosts cracking jokes about alien Tinder. Swipe right for 6 tentacles, swipe left for acid spit. But here's the thing. As much as we'd turn it into memes and merch, deep down it would hit people in a way nothing else could. It would take that little bubble we live in, where the biggest problems seem like gas prices and celebrity breakups, and pop it. Suddenly, you're forced to zoom out, to realize Earth is just one rock among billions, and we're not even the most interesting thing in our own cosmic neighborhood anymore. And then there's the military angle. You know, the Pentagon would go full paranoia mode. What if they're hostile? What if they have tech we can't even detect? Next thing you know, you've got secret committees planning for an alien invasion while publicly saying, everything's fine. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If they're even 1,000 years ahead of us, let alone 1,000,000, we wouldn't stand a chance in a fight. That's not defeatism. It's just reality. It'd be like a squirrel trying to win a dog fight against an F-22. Now, maybe they're peaceful. Maybe they've moved past war entirely. But here's where it gets weird. If they are peaceful, they might still see us as dangerous. We're like the rowdy teenagers in the galactic neighborhood. We've got nukes, we've got a history of fighting over resources, and we're still figuring out how not to blow ourselves up over ideology. If you were them, would you just let us cruise into space unchecked, or would you set up some kind of galactic probation? Like, you can visit Alpha Centauri, but we're keeping an eye on you. And think about how we'd act if the roles were reversed. If we discovered intelligent life on a nearby planet, would we just land and say, hey, what's up? No way. We'd send drones first. We'd study them from orbit. We'd figure out if they're hostile, if they're smart, if they're worth talking to. We might not even let them know we're there, which, again, brings us back to the zoo hypothesis. Maybe this has already happened to us, but even if there's no life, even if it's just an empty planet, it still changes everything, because an empty, habitable planet is like winning the cosmic lottery. You could move there. It's real. A state on a scale we've never imagined. And you better believe if that news came out, there'd be a gold rush. Countries, corporations, billionaires, everybody staking their claim. There'd be lawyers arguing over who owns Alpha Centauri before we even figure out how to get there, and that's where the moral questions start. If we can get there, do we have the right to terraform it? To change it for our needs? What if it has simple life forms, like alien bacteria? Do we just wipe them out so we can build condos? Or do we protect them, treat the whole planet like a nature reserve? And if you think we'd unanimously choose the ethical option, I have a bridge to sell you. Now let's talk tech for a second. If this discovery lights a fire under humanity's butt, we could see a new space race like the one in the 60s, but on steroids. Governments pouring billions into propulsion systems, private companies competing to be first, scientists working around the clock. You'd see weird, radical ideas getting funded, warp drives, antimatter engines, nuclear pulse propulsion. Stuff that's sitting in white papers right now could suddenly be in development. And maybe, just maybe, that urgency gets us over the great filter. Maybe it pushes us to grow up as a species because now there's something out there worth reaching. But here's the funny part. In typical human fashion, we'd probably still find a way to screw it up. There'd be people arguing, why? Are we spending all this money going to another star when we've got problems here? And they'd have a point. But at the same time, exploration is in our DNA. If we'd had that attitude 500 years ago, we'd all still be living in tiny villages, never knowing there's an entire planet to explore. And personally, I think knowing. There's a planet in Alpha Centauri's habitable zone could be the greatest motivator humanity's ever had. It's the ultimate carrot on a stick, except the carrot is a whole other world. And even if it takes generations to get there, even if we don't make it, the fact that it's possible could change how we think, how we innovate, how we see ourselves in the universe. But until then, we watch. We point our telescopes. We gather data. We dream about what's over there. And somewhere, maybe somebody over there is doing the exact same thing, pointing their instruments at a pale blue dot 4.37 light years away, wondering if we're worth the trip.